The following production is intended for entertainment purposes only. We are not legal professionals. We do not speak for any government agency, and the opinions expressed here are our own. Relax.
Is that appears to be a visor? Is that what they're handing out instead of stickers these days?
That's what you get at my house whenever you come trick or treating.
Oh, okay. What was that part of your costume last night?
No, honestly, it wasn't. I wore my Navy jacket last night. Got a lot of miles off my Navy jacket. People would come up to me, and I would say I did not like it. I actually loved it, but I did feel sorry for them a little bit because there was lots of little teeny tiny awkward conversation or awkward moments. But I feel like that's pretty normal for all of Halloween, right?
Sure.
Like
Yeah,
I
because
think
you're wearing like a hot dog, or
yeah.
like
What are you? Are you a secretary or just a prostitute? Which one?
lots of awkward conversations. By the way, we never said hi or
Oh, howdy,
what's
buddy.
up. What's up?
Let me take that off. That's actually uncomfortable. I was wearing it for voting day.
Um, yeah. So you wore your Navy jacket.
Yeah. So, and like there's one instance that sticks out in my head because like this poor girl, I my Navy jacket has all my Navy patches on it, but it's not a costume. But, um I was at the end of the street and this happened a few times, but this gal who's out on her driveway, like handing out candy. They got a little fire pit out there and they're drinking beers. That's a pretty popular thing to do in my neighborhood is to like have small driveway parties while
Yeah.
people are trick or treating. Um, I walked by and this gal goes, "I love your jacket," and I was like, "Thanks. It's not a costume, but I do like it." And she was like, "Huh." And you know what? In retrospect, I'm absolutely the one that made that awkward. She
Yes.
she
Yeah.
didn't make it awkward. Okay.
So, so when you're walking down the street like Woody from Toy Story, and someone's like, "I like your vest," that's kind of on you for wearing that on Halloween,
Of course. Of
right?
course.
Because most
But
people are going to think it's a costume.
what's the costume? I mean,
Well, I was going to ask.
PTSD hippie vet.
I was going to ask, like, what else? Because I thought you were wearing it as a
Just the
costume, also.
jacket, brother. I was running from the police. uh no. Blue jeans and tinnies and a t-shirt underneath it and
Yeah.
a ball cap. I mean, I was just walking around with a bunch of middle-aged parents herding
Yeah.
herding six to I think our oldest in the group was 9 or 8. I don't know.
I saw some pictures on Facebook, but I don't remember, what did the kids dress up as?
Cash was Hulk.
Hulk
He
Hogan or the Incredible Hulk?
the Incredible Hulk. Was Hulk Hogan a ripoff somehow of the Incredible Hulk? Or
No, no, dude. In fact, I don't ever want to hear that again. That Hulk
I,
Hogan was a ripoff of anybody.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
borderline blasphemous,
I
brother.
apologize, Terry. What position would Terry take up in would Hulk Hogan take up in the Trinity? If there was a wrestling Trinity, who would be on it, and what
Oh, jeez.
position would the Hulk Hogan take
Hulk Hogan would
on?
be God the Father.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, no,
definitely.
yeah, no doubt about it. Uh,
It-
Macho Man would have to be there as well.
he's the Holy Spirit.
And
He's
then,
well, the Ultimate Warrior might be the Holy Spirit, and Macho Man might be the
yes,
Son.
yes,
Macho Man might be the
and
Son, and the Ultimate Warrior is the Holy Spirit.
Miss Elizabeth would be the Holy Mother.
Yeah, or she's one of the Marys in the New Testament. I don't know which
Dude,
one. She's
I
one of
used
them.
I used to be so in love with Miss Elizabeth.
Yeah,
She's everything a 8-year-old boy could ever want.
man. Think about this. I mean, I don't know how to even articulate it, and it's probably might as well not even bring it up because I don't know how I can put this out there. But like, what I'm thinking of is like how time progresses and the things that we thought were the measure of success, by the time we get to the level of claiming that success, there's
Yeah.
already a new bar.
Yeah.
Particularly what I'm thinking of is Flock of Seagulls hair.
Okay.
I remember every lady in my
Oh,
church
okay.
that I thought was, before MILF was a thing, or, before Hot Mom was a thing,
Yeah.
these women were just lit my little, I thought that's what a real woman looks like.
Yeah.
And B, that's what success looks like. Because when you're poor, you think everyone else is rich.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And the standards by which you gauge that, like, like they're
look at
drinking
this motherfucker with a running car. Oh, you think you're fancy because all your tires got air in it.
like, first off, going out to eat, but then like getting drinks while you're out to eat. Like, you don't have to just get water. Like, you must be rich.
And I feel like, because this is just judgment I've put on myself, but I feel like you can tell when people's looking at the poor part of the menu, like, oh, are they look at these motherfuckers over here. They're looking at the value meal
Yeah.
section.
Yeah. Do you think every young boy has, like, at some point, there's that, at some age, your friends' moms are always like the ideal, right? Is that pretty much every
Kind
little
of.
boy?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah.
Because I think I remember as a kid thinking that, like, not that I wanted to steal them or anything from their husbands, but thinking like, yes, like I could see a life with this woman as a little boy.
Yeah. Dude, I were you like a heartthrob? Were you romantic? Were you always in love with the ladies? I since I was had way too early business even thinking about it, I have always been like, "Hello, madam." Like when when I'm 6, I'm like, enchanté." Were you like that at all?
uh, so I mean, as far as romance, I was probably a little bit late to the game, in the sense of I thought everything was gross, or at least I made a big deal about, oh, that's mushy and blah blah, like, to the point. I mean, kind of obnoxiously, like in movies or whatever. Um, so I don't think I was like romantic as a kid, but I've really always had close relationships with women, and
Oh,
yeah, like, just with girls in general.
yeah.
Um,
I always Well, when I was a kid, when I thought Flock of Seagulls was a mark of success and a mark of beauty, um, I was like, wow, one day. Yeah, like you were saying, one day she could be mine. Exactly like you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah. Um, I gotta say this because I'm holding it in my hand. There's a discount for these zone nicotine things at Quick Trip.
Okay. Are those 9 milligram I'm
9
seeing?
milligrams. Yeah, man.
Holy brother.
One better than the highest that on goes. It's got
And
a
Quick
weird
Trip has these?
picture pattern. And so this one's dragon fruit,
Hmm.
which it's got kind of a, maybe a fruity taste initially, but it's got like a real salty, kind of weird aftertaste.
I think it's
Um,
named dragon fruit because all the chemicals come from China.
I'm guessing maybe that salt taste might be one of the chemicals in the. Let's see.
Yeah, we've improved nicotine where it no longer tastes like tobacco. Now it tastes like chlorine.
Yeah.
What a
Let's
great
see.
improvement.
How is it that California knows all this shit about what causes cancer, by the way?
Yeah, it's known in California to cause cancer. But you know what's A-OK in California? Pumping kids full of hormone blockers and letting them mutilate their body without telling their parents. That's
Well,
A-OK in
j-
California.
just don't give them flavored tobacco.
Bro, I am fired up over this political stuff. I go so far back and forth between this is the most important. Keep on reading. I want to know what's in
No,
it.
I'm listening. Nothing. It doesn't say anything about what's in it. Just that it causes cancer in California.
I'm so far fired up. And like I said, I go back and forth between we have to stop this clear and present danger that is facing America to it doesn't matter. My vote doesn't count. And I do want this news cycle to be over with. I want to talk about I want to have something bigger to focus on. But yeah, I go between it doesn't matter and it's all pointless and we're doomed anyway to this is the greatest threat to face my lifetime. Uh, and we have to stop it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like both are true.
Yeah.
Like this is a huge deal and there's nothing we can do about it.
It's like a bully. It's like it is like it is going to be obviously uncomfortable and I'm not going to win. I'm not going it's like I'm not going to win if I confront this bully in the hallway because I'm going to get in trouble and then my parents are going to be pissed and I might get suspended yada yada or I let this bully keep on bullying me and everyone else.
Yeah. Um, dude, I don't the part of the problem is, and I think part of the reason I don't know what to think about things is I just don't know who to trust. Like there's like I don't trust polls, I don't trust either either candidate. I don't trust
Yeah.
ads. Like
Donald Trump,
I
even
don't
though
freaking
we're
know.
pulling for him, Donald Trump has lied. He's exaggerated a lot. He's
Yeah.
kind of he was known for that way before he was a politician.
Yeah. Which I mean that's one of the things that I can think about people that I've known that are kind of like him, like his archetype. And I think we've talked about this. Like the dude, you probably knew him from church growing up. The dude that just always talked louder, looked around, to make sure who was
I'm the
looking at him.
greatest. I'm the
Um,
greatest.
just a real big shot, like get very generous when people could see, like that type of person, always exaggerating.
Yeah.
Like that's who he is.
That's who he is.
And that's
Yeah.
not an excuse. Whatever, not that I need to give one. I'm just saying that yes, I think that he is a habitual
Yeah.
liar, or I mean, if you want to call it liar,
Yeah.
or
Sure.
exaggerator, whatever you want to call it.
In the strictest sense of the word.
Yeah, but I don't think I I don't think that like I feel like the other side is just bold faced. This thing didn't happen, and they say that it did, like just an outright lie. I
Man,
don't.
the weirdest example of what you just said that I've been hearing a lot lately, and it baffles me so much that they don't see the hypocrisy in this is everyone on the left and like even some social media posts are saying you don't understand he's going to weaponize the justice system to go after his political enemies and the whole time and I've seen people like respond to this even but the whole time I'm like we've just saw 3.5 years of you guys the
Yeah,
man is a convicted felon now because
yeah,
you weaponize the justice system. And one answer for that I saw is actually a reporter, so an educated person, a member of the media, replied to this, and she didn't even see. She was like, she said, Biden didn't weaponize the justice system because Trump was indicted by a grand jury. So it's not like I'm like, okay, just because you explained how he did it, he selected because in one of them it was exactly this. He selected a prosecutor to come like basically from off the bench. It was like he was a retired third highest judge in the district. The administration basically called him out of retirement to come back and go after Donald Trump specifically. And yes, after he collected what he thought was enough probable cause, he had a grand jury indict him and bring him to court for all this stuff. But that's just because you explain how it happened doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah, right. Because you could find, I mean, you could come up with 12 random citizens and get them to agree to anything.
Yeah. Or
Like that.
even more importantly, get them to not agree on something.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there was honestly like the entire election cycle previously and Trump's presidency, all of the things they accused him of doing, they literally were doing.
Yeah.
Like it was bizarre, like from Russia to disinformation to like, I don't remember all of it, to be honest, but I just remember thinking, wait a second, that's what they were saying Trump was doing with absolutely everything.
Okay. I don't know if now's the time to do it. Just I don't want the 24 people to listens to this to be so
To
far
leave
affected.
yet?
Yeah. Or no, I don't want to affect their vote, but I was gonna say that I think it might be time for me to prove, because I keep on saying that I'm not a Trumper and then I spend my whole time praising Trump. It might be my time to prove that I'm not a Trumper, because there are some things that Trump is really bad on, and I think they're big things.
All right.
Man, a few of them. First on the list, he said him and his sons both laughed like it was a foregone conclusion. I remember this. He didn't specifically, but his son said the first time that total decriminalization of marijuana was on the table. They said that for the first time for 16, that total decriminalization. Now you can say that as soon as they got in, they were under a fire and they were playing defense as soon as they got in, because there is a few things, but total decriminalization of marijuana, he said that was going to happen. That didn't happen. That's a big thing. And I think it's kind of trivial. It seems trivial because it's easy to laugh like he just wants weed legalized. A, yes. B, there are still people in prison right now for weed, for possession. Like 3 strikes you're out, folks in California, life sentences. There's still folks in prison for weed.
Do you think that there are, when I was against legalization, people made that argument, and I would argue back that, at least from what I've seen in my experience, people don't get charged for user possessions of marijuana or user amounts of marijuana, let alone convicted. I find it really hard to believe that anybody's in prison anywhere for simple possession of marijuana.
Oh,
but I mean, and you could make an argument that, well, why is an ounce, or why is a pound, why is 50 pounds? Yeah. Like, I don't really have an argument for that. But simple possession, I just don't know if people are really in prison that didn't have possession with intent.
I guarantee there are. But also something, I mean, the real thing before, like, we could look that up real easily, but even before you look it up, you also have to consider your lens, because I don't think there's definitely not anyone right now or in the last 10, 15 years, maybe, that was convicted and in prison from Wichita or in Sedgwick County in Kansas. But man, the stories you hear, and I don't know because I wasn't there, but the stories you hear about LAPD and Kamala Harris's, and her predecessors, that California judicial system, they were going after people left and right. There's still lots of footage of or these moms that she put in prison in California for truancy violations. So these moms went to prison for truancy, which I think is a far lesser crime than simple possession of marijuana.
Yeah. So their kids weren't going to school, and
So this one instance, and this is one instance that obviously the right has cherry picked to use in this ad. Most of these parents were probably just letting their children run amok. And Kamala Harris, as the DA, told the law enforcement agencies to go in and start arresting these parents that were not making their kids go to school because they thought truancy was leading to crime, which is, logical train of thought. Truancy was leading to crime, and these children are being unsupervised and running amok.
yeah, I'm wondering. Surely there must have been like a like what type of case would that be? Like
Neglect.
just neglect. Yeah,
Yeah.
there must have been other accusations of neglect, not just your kids aren't going to school.
Right. Sure. But I mean, in its essence, and even like now, how it's labeled is it was a truancy case. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, we can call it
yeah,
whatever, but it was truancy. Um, there was a mother who had a single working mom, single African American lady who's on this commercial that a lot of people have seen. She had special needs. I don't know to what degree, but they say a special needs child, and the child had to go to the hospital, like had to spend some time in the hospital, had a medical episode. Well, Kamal Harris went after her and sent the police after her and arrested her for truancy. Well, while she's arrested, she gets fired from her job. And it's just this big spiral where she ends up letting the state has this daughter for the rest of her life until it's something like this. Like it's this horrible tragedy that unfolds. And it's because at some level, it's because Kamala Harris told police to go after these truancy crimes. Like I say, that's the one example that was handpicked by the right for this ad. But that even still, even if it's the Bebe's kids, the mom that is letting her kids just run amok, I don't know if she should be getting in a cage for that.
yeah, yeah. I mean the idea of going to prison for truancy is mind blowing.
Right.
But I guess I would just think that, especially a state like California, like
Right. So
that
that's
they
what
would
I'm
just be
saying.
inundated. How could they possibly charge people for user amounts of marijuana? Like their jails couldn't be big enough.
Well, that's where you're wrong because my friend, we have private prisons.
You just build more.
We'll just build more, and the taxes will pay these private companies and which is a giant thing. That is a
Yeah.
huge thing. There's far more private prisons in the United States than there are federal prisons or public prisons.
Which even if you think about that, like that could be something that maybe it probably wasn't intended to go this way, but like what
It
I was
sure
gonna
was convenient.
well, yeah, like I can see how it would be cost effective and just a good strategy to have the jail, say in Sedgwick County, to have that run by a private company where you
Right.
just you pay them less than you're paying, than it costs you to run the facility. So taxpayers save money. It's a third party. Like I can see how it makes sense.
Oh, dude, we could come up with a business plan. Like Justin and Clayton can come up with a business plan, and we know enough people, and we know enough subject matter experts. We can come up with a plan to run specifically, the jail, our jail there, and or any other jail for
Yeah.
less on paper, for less than what they're currently doing it. We could come up with some examples to be more efficient, and we could, like, for real, pitch that and sell it.
Yeah. And I think that we could do it, just for the record, for I know you don't, but if anybody else did, for the record,
And Jeff,
zero
I don't want to do that. Please don't come at
zero
me, Jeff.
interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Couldn't be less interested.
You win, dude.
But you could do that with the right goals, the right mindset. Like you want to provide a prison atmosphere that's therapeutic, whatever, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we need more people in our jail, or at least we need to keep our jail full. We don't want vacancy in our jail, because that's how these, as a business, that's how we make money.
Man, so
You've got it.
you're making the problem that you're going to solve.
Yeah.
And the
And not even, I mean, even if we had the best intentions, it's a conflict of interest.
right.
But let's say that we're just looking for money. Let's say that we're just trying to, like, we don't have the right intentions. All you got to do is talk to a few people in the legislature and keep some things illegal, or make some things illegal, or
So that's why that is absolutely the reason, one of the main reasons. Like, if there's a top 5 reasons of why marijuana is still illegal in the United States while it's still a controlled substance, that's one of the top ones. And it comes from specifically the California Prison Union, but also the United States Prison Workers Union has petitioned since the 90s, because there's been serious talks about decriminalizing or even legalizing weed since the 90s at the federal level. And the biggest voice against it was the American Prison Union or something like that. It's the prison union, the biggest prison union in the United States. Made a PAC and lobbied and hired lobbyists to go affect Congress, which is fine. I guess that's a legal thing to do. No, it's not fine. I think it's
not
corrupt.
fine.
It's not
Yes.
fine. It's not fine, but it's legal. They made
Yeah.
they made a PAC and went and influenced political leaders to keep marijuana criminalized, because that ensures more prison worker jobs.
What was the argument that they made? Because surely it wasn't that.
I don't know what the argument made, but that is the obvious reason. If you
Yeah.
are a prison union, a union of prison workers, and you're advocating for a law to still be had, that the public widely, like even Grandma Betty in the Southern Baptist Church, who would never dream of it, she probably still agrees, like, hey, we shouldn't be putting people in cages for breathing plant smoke, right?
Do you think back then, like now, I think that's probably the
Right.
the
Back then,
idea.
I mean, it might not have been the majority, but it was serious enough for them to find it necessary to intervene, because there's all
Yeah.
kinds of wacko bills that get introduced every year that there's no reason to intervene.
Yeah.
You know?
So the drug conversation, we could talk for 2 hours about that.
Sure.
Kind of bringing it back. So in terms of the politics and why you're not a Trumper, he said that he would legalize
He said he would legalize
marijuana.
weed, and he
That
didn't.
wasn't.
That
Yes.
took way too much time. That took way more time than it should have.
So do you think that, and I think you alluded to this, did he even have the option? Like, was that even even if he
Well,
wanted to? Like, I feel like he was putting out so many fires and being undercut on like every different level, even if he
yeah,
wanted to.
yeah, until you realize, and in a way, I'm kind of glad he didn't do it, but every president before him, and even he did this in other ways, he doesn't have to present it as a bill for the House of Representatives and Senate to vote on, and then for him to sign. He can just, like, the presidents have the power. What is that? It's not a bill. It's when the president just declares, like, it's a declaration.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Executive
an
order.
executive order. It's like he was doing with the border, and like the Democrats are accusing him of, another example, like the Democrats are accusing him of stopping their bill that would solve the border. He was doing it on a two front. He did have executive orders that that slowed the border. I don't want to say stop, but severely slowed the border. And he was trying to get it done through Congress, because the most constitutional way to get any law passed is through Congress. Really, the only constitutional way to get any law passed is through your representatives to vote on it, because a vote should represent the people.
Right.
And an executive order obviously does not. But he used his executive order to get that wall slowed down. To put the walls up, to get the border slowed down, is what I'm saying.
Right. Right.
He had the power of executive order. He could have decriminalized marijuana with an executive order. He could have told DEA to take it off the controlled substance list. That's another thing. The department of the DEA, or the head of the DEA, is part of the Department of Justice. He selects the Department of Justice. He could have told them to decriminalize it.
So in your mind, and obviously we don't know, but in your mind, do you think that he just
I don't
didn't
think it was
actually
a bait
want,
and switch.
like, was that never the intent, or he just never got around to it?
It was never important enough for him to deserve his attention. And I get it. I get that part. I get the argument, at least. Yeah, that's what I'll say. I get the argument, because he was pretty busy the whole time he was in there. I get the argument that he didn't have time for it. But man, I really wish he would have, and not just because weed makes you giggle. I think there are still people in cages. Now, I've been told that there are still people in cages, and even the liberal media has admitted that there are still people that used to be one of their main champions is fighting for the unrepresented and fighting for people who are in there. Okay, but even marijuana, we're done with that. The hearing protection laws. I'm just going to name laws that are important to me specifically, and then we'll go big. We'll start small and go big.
Okay.
The Hearing Protection Act was a bill that's been introduced many times. And again, he could have done this with an executive order and then had it straightened out. But he said, and his son, Don Jr., said that they were going to champion this bill, the Hearing Protection Act, which is basically takes sound suppressors, silencers, off of the National Firearms Act, the NFA, so they're not controlled by the ATF. And the ATF is gay. There should be no National Firearms Act. But even still, like I said, pick the biggest battles. The biggest battle that he said he was, or at least his sons definitely said that his administration was going to go after, was this Hearing Protection Act, and it would take silencers off. There's no reason for silencers to be controlled by the ATF.
Yeah, that's strange that they are.
Yeah, they're not a firearm, and that's one of their arguments. That's the craziest thing, because that's one of their arguments that they've used like normal. I mean, they're just blatant hypocrites, and they're such a hypocrite where they cannot see the hypocrisy. They've said that people have sued the ATF to say that they have no authority to control silencers because they're not a firearm. It's an attachment too. Or no. I apologize. That was a later argument. The first argument was that they controlling suppressors is a violation of the Second Amendment. They're like, hey, you're infringing on our Second Amendment right to say that we can't modify this firearm with this suppressor. And the ATF said, first they said that a suppressor is not a firearm, so it's not protected by the Second Amendment. That was their first answer for that.
Okay.
And so then a separate group said, okay, well, since it's not a firearm, you guys can't control it. It's out of the scope of the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. It's none of those three things. And they said, well, since it is an attachment, it's within our scope to control it. So they basically made this magic wand to say it's not protected by firearms because it's not a firearm. Well, okay, if it's not a firearm, you can't control it. But since it's attached to a firearm, we can control it.
Yeah. I mean, I can see the logic there. I disagree with it, but it's the same thing as saying like a magazine. If I don't know what the laws are now, but let's say that you can't have a 20-round magazine or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a firearm, obviously.
Yeah.
But since it's an attachment to, or it's since it's a component of the firearm, yeah, if they have any authority to police firearms, then I would say that that would fall within their authority.
Well, okay. So we can get in the weeds with this a little bit. This is kind of my deep waters that I don't think I've taken you to, definitely not, but definitely not the public. What is a firearm? Like if you were to blow a gun up into pieces, what piece would you point at and say that is like what piece does the
Well,
ATF have the authority to control?
I mean, again, if they have the
If
authority
they
to
have
control,
any.
yes, then they have all. So
Okay.
like, I mean, there are just a few major components: the firing pin, the trigger, the barrel. Like those are the things that you need.
Yeah.
You need something to strike the bullet. You need something for
There's
the
one thing you're missing, and that's what the ATF calls the gun, and that's they use the word receiver, but what it is just something that keeps it all together. Something that
okay.
keeps that barrel, the firing pin, and the firing mechanism. It's not always a firing pin, obviously, but something that keeps that barrel, the firing mechanism, and the trigger together would be the receiver. And
Okay.
that's what the ATF says is the gun.
When those three things, or when those components are held together by a receiver, now it's a gun.
Just the receiver is the actual gun. Like if you were to point out a piece, because this
Okay.
argument's been had a couple of different ways up to the Supreme Court, is that was that question like what do you have the right to control? You ATF, Mr. F word. What do you have the right to control? And it came down to the receiver, and they're following your logic, but they followed it down to its what I think its conclusion is like, well, it's not just the barrel and it's not just the firing pin. And you could say it because you can create a firearm, and this is getting into the weeds. You can create a firearm without a barrel, theoretically. You can make it to where like these integrally suppressed barrels where like the barrel is the suppressor. You can make it where like the receiver has a rifled groove and is the barrel. Like, I mean, it's more
Yeah.
complicated than just barrel firing mechanism, actuator, which is what the trigger would be. The actuator, the firing mechanism, and the barrel. It's more complicated than that. But the only thing that can be consistent with any firearm or with anything, yeah, with it, in this case it's firearm, is what keeps it all together. Even if it's just that thing itself, like if it's theoretically one solid piece that does everything, that piece is what we would call the receiver. And that's what the ATF says is a firearm.
Okay.
What is guaranteed by the Second Amendment.
Okay. So Trump said that he would get rid of the law that prohibits suppressors.
Well, he can't do that because that would be the National Firearms Act. And I mean, technically he could, but he never promised to do that. What he promised to do was get suppressors off of the NFA, and his sons had elaborated on it and said they wanted to do this Hearing Protection Act. But it was pretty simple, and it even had bipartisan support. In Europe, liberal communist ass Europe, the countries that do allow firearms for hunting have no questions about suppressors. You don't have to sign up, like you can just buy it off the shelf in Europe.
Let me ask you this: do you think that is the main purpose of suppressors? Is it to assassinate people more quietly, or is it so that you don't have to wear hearing protection? Or is it just because I'm an American and I can do whatever the fuck I want?
Well, that's the Trump card, as I'm an American, but that seems obnoxious, and whatever. It is definitely cartoonish, but that seems obnoxious that I can do whatever I want. As far as it to protect your hearing or to, I'm not going to say assassinate things, to kill things quietly. Yes, but that's the same thing. It's to make the noise signature lower. That's all a suppressor does. Is it suppresses the noise signature of that shot.
Right. And you don't have to now this uh I do think is part of our American culture is you don't have to explain why you want something to be quieter.
Yes.
Like it's your freedom. It's none of my business.
Yeah.
However,
What if I painted it orange? Are you going to ask why I painted it orange?
but like what are the pros and cons?
Well,
Why?
what is I think the first question is what's the concern?
Yeah.
Why would someone have a problem? And there's a couple obvious answers, but what would you say? Like why are suppressors illegal in the first place?
Like to be clear, I don't think they should be, but my guess
Right.
is that somebody somewhere said, well, a lot of people are going to get murdered or shot and no like the
We're
police
not
aren't
going to
going to
know.
we're not going to know about it or the police aren't going to be able to investigate it or I think there's probably a perception of like James Bond walking around and
Right.
just like because even
Yeah.
with a suppressor it's probably at least I mean you're still going to hear it, right? It's not like a BB
Right.
gun.
It would sound like if I take this book and drop it on, well, I don't know. I can't say it sounds like anything because it's such a scale, a variable scale. Like if you were to take a low power 22, it you wouldn't hear it. A low power 22 and send it through a good suppressor or really any suppressor, an oil can theoretically, which I have never done. ATF, you could you wouldn't hear it at all. You would hear the action moving back and forth. You would hear the firing bolt moving back and forth. You wouldn't hear the sound at all because it's so slow where it wouldn't break. Normally, what you actually hear, like on a 223, that video when you heard that video of Donald Trump getting shot and all the shots going around him, the main thing you heard was the snap of those 223 rounds breaking the sound barrier. That's like the sound of 223 is very distinguishable because you more hear the sound of them breaking the barrier. They're really fast. 223s are really fast. And of course the powder detonating does make a pretty loud pop, but the sound you hear, it's almost like I said, it's like metallic. Like it's kind of rangy, and that's the sound of 223s breaking it. If you were to get you would hear that even with a suppressor. You would hear that snap no matter how big. You could shoot it through a pillow and you would still hear that snap because it's going fast enough to break the sound barrier. Um where was I going? I was just explaining how the scale of sound
Well,
of
you
what
would
a
ask
suppressor sounds like.
you would ask what the argument would be for
Yeah.
why they would be illegal, and the only thing I could come up with is that people might get assassinated.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
you wouldn't hear about it.
And I get it. It's honest, but these are I'm going to use a word an ignorant assumptions. These are some I'm not saying you had that, but like
Yeah.
that public view is an ignorant assumption because that's assuming that you hear all other shots that aren't
Hmm.
with a suppressor. Oh, like, oh, because he has a suppressor, we're not going to hear it. And then all these people are going to start dropping like flies from assassinations. Well,
Yeah.
oh, do you hear every other shot?
Because people have this picture of James Bond screwing on the silencer
Yeah.
and then just
Yeah. Well,
picking people off.
yeah. Yeah, so the naive assumption there, or yeah, or the lack of knowledge, the ignorant assumption there is that you would hear every other shot, and the truth is you wouldn't. Like I could take an unsuppressed 22, I could take an unsuppressed 22, a low power 22, and which is pretty easy to get. You can buy these shells at Academy. These low power, which all it means is they're not going to be fast. There's smaller amounts of powder in there to make it not break the sound barrier. And I can shoot it in my closet right now, and my neighbor wouldn't hear anything.
Would that be like the subsonic rounds?
Yeah, subsonic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so he didn't do that.
no, he didn't legalize weed. He didn't take the suppressors off the list. Um, we'll get through my bad list because we've taken 30 minutes just to talk about those two, right? Or 45 minutes. Jeez
45.
Louise. God dang. All right. Well, we're almost done then.
We could record a special. Well, maybe we. I'm not sure if we could or not. I was gonna say we could record a special voting day episode. Um,
It's
honestly, though,
gonna be.
I'm a little bit nervous about how long
Yeah.
it's
Let's
gonna
just get
take.
off Trump's bad list and move on.
Um, I've heard from two people. So my mom voted early
Yeah.
last
I
last
voted
week.
early. You said you won't vote early because it's not American.
Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable, or not uncomfortable. I prefer the thrill of like same day, and I don't trust the mail-in system.
You shouldn't.
But um,
Couple people have voted early
yeah,
already.
like hours and hours in line,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, and my assumption is that that's because there are fewer early voting places
Places.
than there are going to be like regular places. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that's the case. Because like in Derby, for example, like all of Mulvane and all of Derby had one early voting place.
Uh-huh.
So I'm hoping that's it, because honestly, I'm afraid that I'm going to show up at 6:30 in the morning and still be in line by 11.
See, that's the thing. You got to make it easy. You got to make it easy to do it. And that's one thing that Republicans, I'm not saying you got to let people show up willy-nilly and with ski mask and you know what I mean and vote with no ID, but you do have to make it easy for people to do the right way. Whatever the right way is. Go
Should
ahead.
it be easy?
I
Should it
think
be
so.
easier, or should you have
Accessible.
accessible? Yes, it should certainly be accessible. But also, if you're not willing to stand in line for 4 hours,
Mm,
I don't know that.
I think this is dangerous. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I just don't. Yes, you should for sure have the right. Nobody should ever take that right away. But if you're not willing to stand in line for 4 hours, I don't know that I really want to hear your opinion, or that I think that you should have a say in the matter.
Yeah, I get that. But
Well,
that,
hold on. Let me back that up. I said should, and that you should have a say in the matter. Absolutely. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I can make it work and still stay like not be a hypocrite, because you should have the say, but you know what I'm saying? Like I don't
yeah, there should
trust.
be some skin in the game.
Yeah.
There definitely should be some skin in the game. But what skin is inherently in the game? Just being a citizen, like this vote is going to affect me. Being a citizen, proving that you're a citizen, showing some form of ID to prove that you're a citizen, and actually completing the task, which, man, that's an argument. They say that there is a record of, like, there's not a record of who you voted for, but there is a record that you have voted.
Mm-hmm.
Man, should that be publicly accessible?
Oh,
Like, should I be able to look up if you voted in this last election? Because then isn't the
yeah.
mob, if President Trump wins and, or let's spin it the other way, so we're not, so people won't say it's conspiracy theory. If Kamala wins and there's a group of angry conservatives that are going, that want to go house to house to find everyone who voted for Kamala and string them up, tar and feather them. If there was a list of who voted, you could assume like it's pretty, and I had a grudge against my neighbor. And I'd be like, look, Kamala won and Frank voted for her. Well, it doesn't say Frank voted for her. Well, she won, so most people voted for him. And I heard him saying stuff about it. All right, let's go get Frank.
And he's a Democrat.
And he's a Democrat. Oh
Yeah.
boy. If they go to that,
Well, I think right now I'm pretty sure you can see. Yeah, no, you can see registered Republicans and Democrats.
how?
Um,
Because
well,
I know you register.
yeah, I mean, I had a buddy that was running for local office, city level, and he had lists of different part of his campaign was, here's my list of Republicans, here's my list of independents, here's my list of Democrats. And I don't know where he got them or how they're, but I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
I
even
guess the DMV has access to that, because I know in
well,
Kansas,
they wouldn't have access to your political party.
but you register as the political party when you register to vote. You
Yeah,
pick a party.
but not with the DMV.
That's where you register to vote.
At the DMV?
Well, you do every time you get your license. They say, "Do you want to register to vote?"
I don't think that's where I feel like I did it at the post. And obviously it's probably just any,
Maybe
there are
it's
probably
just
multiple government buildings, but I feel like I did it at the post office or online. I don't know.
Wow,
But
we both look like morons to someone right now.
vote, vote, vote.
Vote, vote.
I don't care how you do it, just get registered.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So we spent way too much time on Trump's got a naughty list too. But yeah, it does feel like it's either I have to, like, this is the biggest existential threat in my life, or it doesn't work. It's pointless. And the only thing that keeps on getting me fired up and going back to the argument at all is the future of my children, and what can be conceived at and is definitely portrayed as a tax on kids right now. And what I mean is, like,
mm-hmm.
this cultural transgender stuff. And man, I do not care at all if you're a consenting adult and you want to do transgender or you want to do whatever to your body. God bless. Mazel tov. But when it comes to children, there's a reason we don't let kids get tattoos, because they're not smart enough to make these decisions. There's a reason the drinking age is 21. There's the reason the tobacco age is 21. There's a reason you can't join because your brain's not developed enough to make these decisions.
There's a reason you can't drive. There's a reason you can't vote. There's a reason you can't get your ears pierced. Like,
yeah,
for even moderately significant alterations to your body or decisions
to
require
get your ears
adult
pierced.
consent. Yeah.
So in California, right now, schools, if a child comes up and expresses this concern to the school counselor or a teacher, I don't know if this is happening rampant, but it's definitely been portrayed as that the counselor can definitely not communicate this to the parents, and that the state could even help facilitate this transition in some way. Like, the state could help this young person make these life-altering decisions about their body and not even have a parent say so. And parents can be arrested for abuse if, like, they stop it, if they interfere.
So I got to be careful here, because I know that well, for one, I'm not totally sure how my own thoughts line up on it, but for two, for anybody that knows me, like this, they would have a difficult time with this thought process. What I'm trying to say is, for a long, long time, I've been staunch, absolutely no question about it, pro-life, and I still am. Like, I still strongly believe in protecting life. However, I just recently have come to find out that, like, a lot of the stuff I was taught and told and kind of campaigned on, so to speak, isn't necessarily like what's happening with abortion and with right to access to abortion. Like, that if a child, if a baby isn't going to be viable outside the womb, that to terminate that would be an abortion. Like, a medical termination is an abortion. And, like, I've always just thought of abortion as, well, that's just because you want to be promiscuous and you want to just not have to deal with children, or selfish, whatever.
Birth control.
And I think that the argument, that's what was portrayed to me. But I think the reality is that, well, there is a healthcare aspect to it. And so to for me to have a position of I'm pro-life, like no, make abortion illegal, whatever, that might not be the best solution.
It's
Or
definitely
that
more complicated than that. It's more nuanced
it's
than that.
it's a lot more nuanced. And so to bring that back to like the transgender stuff with kids, I just wonder if that's actually happening, or
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
that's a talking point that they're right
It's what you
is
hear every time
pushing.
you listen to Joe Rogan. And man, I love Joe Rogan, but that's what you hear every time you listen to Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And you hear it enough to get you fired up to want to protect these kids. But man, that's a good point, that because it's the same, we see the same thing with like a liberal portrayal of, man, Project 2025. Like Trump has come out publicly and said, I'm not part of Project 2025. You know what I mean? There's parts of Project 2025 that I think are good, but a lot of it that I think is bad. That's a Republican thing. That's on them. Trump has publicly said many times that he's not part of Project 2025. There are still ads where the Democrats say Trump's aggressive Project 2025 is going to access your right to birth control. So, like, to me, they're like, you guys have no idea of what the actual issue is. Like, your argument that Trump is 2025 when he's obviously said it. Maybe there's another version of that where like you guys think all these kids are lining up to get their junk chopped off when it's actually not like that. It's more nuanced. I'm sure it could be, but man, so
But even that, like, okay, so let's not take such a strong or an extreme example. Maybe it's just hormone blockers, or maybe it's like there are other things that are happening that are probably just maybe not as dangerous, but at least harmful.
irreversible. You cannot undo that, especially when your body is going through puberty and your bones are stretching, your pelvis is widening, getting ready for childbirth. And you know what I mean? All these changes are happening naturally, and now you're going to throw these hormone blockers in there. You cannot undo that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you do it for a month and say, okay, I changed my mind, I want to get off of it. Whatever damage was done is always going to have been done, and it's going to be a part of you forever. Um,
Yeah, and I do feel like it's I'm not a big fan of culture wars, and
yeah.
the whole
What about
conversation.
InfoWars? Are you big on that?
um, but I can see where it's being pushed, and I do think that there's whether you want to call it an attack or a strategy, there's something like our kids are going to feel the brunt of it, and our grandkids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
That's what I'm scared of, or that's what I'm scared for. And whether it's a frontal assault where both sides have these examples of like he's going after your reproductive rights, he's going after this, or she's going after your children, they both seem existential.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm getting anxiety in my chest making this point that maybe it's all, hopefully it is hyperbolic, like we're blowing it up.
Dude, I think that it's working
Yeah.
because everybody feels this.
Yeah.
If you're a liberal, you feel like this is the
End
most
of the world.
important election. If you're a conservative, this is the most important election. And both sides see the other side as the danger,
The
that,
devil, even.
yeah, you've got a Harris sign, you've got a Trump sign, and both sides, you are responsible for ending life as we know it.
Yeah.
I mean, just our politics have gotten so,
Man.
I would
But
say,
here's
violent.
extreme, definitely. But here's the deal. Like with these extreme, like say these conspiracy theories, like, dude, I can lay out to you with pretty good evidence how they want our children. and how there is a secret cabal that is running the entire world, and how it is all driven about money, or driven for money and power, and how they're using these cultural subjects. I can lay that out to you and show you these existential threats.
And each one, I think, like there's no argument.
Right.
Like each one, yes, there is a plan to go after the kids, and by go after, I'm not sure what you mean. What I'm seeing is an ideology. We can
Yeah.
infect, and that sounds that has a connotation to it, but we can infect these kids with an ideology so that by the time they have kids,
Oh
this is
yeah.
how the world works. And so, yeah, when I say going after the kids, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I'm just afraid. I don't want to keep dragging that part out, but there's definitely some fear that I think is warranted, and at the same time, like, we're gonna have to look back and say, oh, some of that fear wasn't warranted. Like maybe the '90s scare of gangster rap. Like they thought that gangster rap was gonna the entire state country was gonna go up in flames because of NWA.
I mean, maybe it is because we had another shooting last night in
Florida.
Wichita. No,
Oh,
in
in
Wichita.
Wichita. Yeah.
I swear we have a shooting, a
Wichita
homicide.
is the wild, wild west.
Dude, it's every day, every night. There's a shooting in Wichita,
You guys got a
and
lot of guns there.
and it has nothing to do with guns. Like I don't, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic here. Like, I don't know what you could possibly do about that from a law enforcement perspective, other than
Oh,
lock shooters up.
here's the deal too.
From a law enforcement, from a societal perspective, all kinds of things. But from a legal, like, well, you
Yeah.
can't make it any more illegal to shoot someone.
That's the thing. Laws are not going to change this.
Right.
Laws are not going to change it. It's already illegal.
Unless you're willing to stop and frisk, put people in prison, put people in jails. Unless you can't have one without the other. We can't have this prison, privatized prison system. That's terrible. Blah blah blah. Well, then you can't put people in. You can't have all these laws, because if
Right.
you're going to have a law, you're going to have a prison.
That's the
Right?
real answer. Is it's deeper. It's a societal issue,
Yes.
which I think both both sides would say is true. It's which societal issue, or maybe how to solve those societal issues is where we
Yeah.
split.
Yeah. So I've got 10 minutes before I've got a hard
I've got less
break.
than that. I'll
Okay.
say 5.
Okay. So, man, isn't that kind of like where we start to come together, is when we realize that we actually want the same thing.
Yes.
We just see it from a different perspective.
Yes.
Like the people that are pushing, some of the people that support, the surgery or whatever, with kids. Some of them, probably most of them, at least the normal, like the everyday people that you work with or whatever that you see at school, they want what's mentally, like they support that kid.
There are definitely true believers that think they're doing right by that kid.
Yes. Now there are people that stand to make millions and billions of dollars.
Like pharmaceutical companies.
Yes. So for sure there are villains in this story. But
Sorry if I yelled in your ear.
I just think that most of the people that we see at the polling line, they're just, we want the same thing. We just see it a different way.
Sometimes. But what if? Yeah. But you can lose sight of the forest because of the trees. So, like, really, what I want is the best society. I want heaven on earth. You know what I mean? I want heaven, which I think one of the explanations of heaven is that heaven is the realization of all good things. Everything is its best. Everything that can be good is good. So that's what heaven is, right? Just the perfect place. So like on the path there, the trees that might block your view of the forest, Conservatives, one of the trees that I say blocks my view of heaven would be guns. Like, I think the best society, everyone should have a gun, and everyone should be more polite because of it. Well, what if in heaven, would there be any need for a gun? Like in your Sunday school heaven, there's no need for a gun.
No.
There's no need for a gun. That hurts to say, because I want a gun with me in heaven.
Okay.
I got firearms, and a lot of the conservative identity and a lot of people who are just American identity, man, definitely vets. A firearm is a part of my identity. A firearm is a part of my psyche. And even maybe it's just the idea of me saying you should have a firearm is a part of my identity. If my perfect utopia, my heaven, there would be no need for a firearm. Am I going to be me there? You know what I mean?
And so your need for a firearm, or your
I got to get off
for,
in like a minute.
Okay. For protection?
Yeah, for protection, for hunting, for all of the things. Because I want to walk around with a dang firearm on my hip.
And you don't have to explain yourself.
I don't have to tell you why.
Yeah.
But so that's a hill. That's one of these many unnecessary hills that maybe we're willing to die on, but we might be missing the forest for the trees. And I don't know what the answer is, but we all want to see the forest. But we all have our view somewhat limited by whatever our big tree is.
Yeah.
The only way to see the forest is to step back, and for us all, you got to make some kind of shift. In order to really get there, everyone has to make some moves.
Yeah. And it's kind of like everybody's like, you move first.
You
move first. No, you do
it. Well, not this move. Not guns. Not guns. I'm not giving up guns.
Yeah. And then before long, we're just like throwing the table and walking out of the room.
What are we doing? What are we going to do about all these school shootings? I don't want my kids to be asking that question.
Dude, I hate the fact, I really hate the fact that my son has a plan for a shooting.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have to.
I love you, brother. I have to go. I'm going to be late.
All right, later.
Next week on Lawless Podcast. Thank you, everyone.
See ya.
Comment.